Okay, so last week we ended in Genesis, I believe 41. So recap is we were talking a lot about Joseph and how he went to he was sold into slavery by his brothers, and he went up through the ranks when he was sold into slavery. It says that it was seen that God was with him, and it was evident that in everything that he did everything with the utmost integrity, and all of the people within the Egyptians' camp recognized how cool of a guy Joseph was, and he raised up through the ranks and ended up being one of Potiphar's most trusted advisors. And Potiphar's wife was one of the focuses of our study, that she was coming after him, wanting to sleep with him, and then she lied about it afterwards. So she tried to seduce him and then stole his coat as he ran away, tried to get away from her, and then said that he was trying to rape her, and instead of admitting what was going on or just leaving it, because he obviously didn't want anything to do with her. But she lied about him, and then he was thrown in prison, and again worked his way up through the ranks of the prison, up to being right up with Pharaoh, because he was able to interpret dreams of these other gentlemen. The baker and the candlestick maker ended up in prison, and after they got out, they spoke with Pharaoh, who was having troubling dreams, and they said, oh, we know this young man in prison that would be able to help you with your dreams. So Pharaoh brought him out, raised him up, and he interpreted Pharaoh's dreams for him, and then was at the head of the court. And that is pretty much where we left off. Also, I said that God uses very broken people, and I guess I misspoke in a way, because God uses people, and all people are we all fall short of the glory. So we're all in need of help. So God uses people that we're all in a state of learning how to believe in who God is, in who we are. So, and sometimes that looks like brokenness, but I don't even think that I would necessarily call it brokenness. And I think I misspoke in saying that, where God just uses people, and we're all learning who he is and who we are, and how to believe. So as the question that I had was with Potiphar's wife. So as she's watching Joseph raise up through the ranks of Pharaoh's court, and then up to be like Pharaoh's right-hand guy, how do you think she would have felt after, like, knowing that she tricked him, or like tried to get him probably murdered? He's lucky he only got sent to jail. And then especially if Asenath was actually her daughter that she raised from an infant, because we were thinking that she was Dinah's daughter from the rape from the ones before. So that it's just an interesting thing to think about, how she must have felt seeing him raised up after she condemned him to prison, and then also marrying her possibly adopted daughter, Pharaoh, which Pharaoh gave to Joseph. So
yeah, kind of backfired on her.
Yeah, a little bit. Yep. So I'm just gonna zip through actually probably the rest of Genesis. I'm just gonna go through my notes. So it doesn't really mention women too much, but we'll touch on what's going on with Joseph, since we've been following him. So Joseph's brothers came to him for help and didn't recognize him. So there is, in Pharaoh's dreams, he dreamt of the famine. It was a 7-year famine that was coming. So Joseph, his brothers came to Egypt because they had the storehouses. So they came there for help, didn't recognize him. And he recognized them, though, and was asking a lot of questions about the family, and was able to hear that he now had another brother, so a full blood brother with Rachel is their mother, Benjamin. So he tells his brothers to go back and get Benjamin, or else he's not going to help them. And he doesn't tell them that he's their brother. He just says, you have to go back and get your youngest brother and bring him back in order for me to give you some grain or supplies. So the brothers go back to Jacob, or Israel as he's called now, and he fears that this man will steal his youngest son, and what he thinks is the only son that he has left with his beloved, which is Rachel. So he fears this man, that he may steal his son, and he's one generation removed from Abraham, and Abraham was ready to sacrifice his son to God, knowing that God said he would bless the nations through his son. So he trusted God above anything else and was ready to sacrifice his son, knowing that God will always provide. Whereas now Jacob, his grandson, Abraham's grandson, is afraid that this man, this right hand of the Pharaoh, is going to steal his son. So it just goes to show how quickly, if the faith is not maintained or strengthened within generations, how quickly that faith can dissipate. Israel, Jacob also said to bring a lot of foods and goods and money to appease what he believes is this hard man that is with Pharaoh here. And so they load up all of these goods and donkeys and take it back, along with Benjamin eventually, because the famine gets worse and worse, and Jacob eventually does cave and say, okay, take Benjamin and all of these items, and hopefully this guy will look favorably on our family. So they go, and it's interesting when you read through it, because these the brothers are worried that he's going to be offended somehow and throw them in prison or kill them. And the whole time Joseph is planning to have a banquet for his brothers, which he does, and he reveals how good he is, and there's a lot in there, and I didn't want to get into too much. Like he did a little trickery with them. He sent him off first and put his silver cup in Benjamin's belongings, and then sent his guards after them to say, well, you robbed our master and now you're in big trouble. And they're like, no, we're honoring your master, we would never steal, and if you can find the silver cup amongst any of us, let that man die. And so then they find it, and he brings him back, and he's like, just kidding, after they probably all pooped their pants. So
Right.
but again, it's brotherly fun or whatever he's doing. So he says,
A little payback.
Yep. Eventually, he tells them who he is, and how he can see that God sent him to Egypt despite his brother's evilness and trying to do these evil things, that God sent Joseph to Egypt to prepare the way so that the family of Israel would be provided for during the time of famine. So even though he had to endure some challenging circumstances, he recognizes God's hand in the whole thing in order to provide food for his chosen people during this 7-year famine. So he sent them back with a bunch of provisions in order to get Jacob and the whole household, Israel, the whole household, to move to a land called Goshen. So then Israel, it talks about how Israel is preparing, Jacob is preparing to sleep with his fathers, which is what a lot of the Jewish people would call death at the time, because they understood that the body passing away was a temporary thing, and they believed in the resurrection of those sleeping people. So he went to go sleep with his fathers after he blessed all of his sons and his grandsons. And that's all very good and very interesting if it was a Bible study about everything in the Bible. But since we're just focusing on the women, I will leave that for anybody to go read on their own study. So that's when Jacob, or Israel, passes away. There's no more mention of Rachel. So I think that we did cover her passing away in the previous one, and that she's buried in the area where all of the folks are buried. So we will start reading in Exodus 1. It says, "Now these are the names of the son of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. Each came with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 people. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the Israelites were prolific and increased greatly. They multiplied and became extremely strong, so that the land was filled with them. Now a new king rose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph, nor the history of his accomplishments. He said to his people, 'Behold, the people of the sons of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. They greatly outnumber us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, so they will not multiply, and in the event of war join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land.' So they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with hard labor. And the sons of Israel built Pithom and Ramses as storage cities for Pharaoh. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied and expanded, so that the Egyptians dreaded and were exasperated by the Israelites. And the Egyptians made the Israelites serve rigorously, forcing them into severe slavery. They made their lives bitter with hard labor in mortar, brick, and all kinds of field work. All their labor was harsh and severe. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Sephrah, which means fair or beautifully decorated. Oh yeah, I even wrote down how to pronounce it. It's Shiphrah. Shiphrah. Yep. And the other named Puah, which means splendid or brilliant. So the Egyptians said to these ladies, when you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them birthing on the birthing stool, if you see a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live. So these are Hebrew women. So the Egyptian people are telling these Hebrew women to kill the Hebrew men, boy, children. But the midwives feared God with profound reverence and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but they let the boy babies live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing and allowed the boy babies to live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth quickly, and their babies are born before the midwife can get to them." So they're telling the pharaohs that just again just to kind of snub their nose at what's going on here, that they are taking these people into slavery. And so the midwives are saying, well, our women are much hardier than your Egyptian women laying back on their chaise lounges giving birth to their children. Our women are out in the field giving birth back to work. So they do it so quick that, I'm sorry, we're just not able to murder the boy children. So, and then verse 20 says, "So God was good to the midwives and the people of Israel, multiplying, and they multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives feared God," so again, these women are just, their character is stronger than a lot of the men that we've seen, where they're fearing God and they're doing their daily tasks with that in mind, that they're not subject to the threats of man, that even unto death, and imprisonment. And that's another beautiful testament to what it is to have that Christian faith, and that what Jesus asks us to do is to be loyal unto death, because we also recognize that even if it looks like my body dies, it never really does, because we don't serve a God of the dead, we serve a God of the living. So verse 22, "Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, Every son who is born to the Hebrews must be thrown into the Nile, but every daughter you shall keep alive." And this is probably because they also would take the Egyptian women as concubines. I don't know that
okay.
that the pharaohs would.
That when it says he gave the order to all his people,
Mm-hmm.
so it means both the Egyptians and the Hebrews.
Nope, it says every son who is born to the Hebrews. Yeah, I'm looking at the Amplified. So yeah, he's talking about the Hebrews, just the Hebrew people. Every son who is born must be thrown into the Nile. So again, the women, they're not worried about what Pharaoh's going to do, because they know that they serve a God that is much higher than the king of Egypt. So the next scriptures gets into a whole bunch of other things. So we'll stop our study there.